Hello friends, welcome to my today's audio tutorial. My name is Harshit Dwivedi. Today I will tell you about Indian Council Act of 1892. This was next in series after Indian Council Act of 1861. So I will tell you point wise the important features of Indian Council Act of 1892. So the first and the foremost most important feature of this act was that additional non-official members were added to the Central Legislative Council and the Provincial Legislative Councils. That means that the strength of non-official members in both the Central Legislative Council and the Provincial Legislative Councils was increased. But the majority of official members was there. That means that non-official members were not allowed to exceed the number of official members. The second most important feature of this Council Act of 1892 was that the functions, authorities and powers of the Legislative Council were increased. They were given, most importantly, they were given the power to address the budget and prepare the each year's financial annual statement. It means that the councils were allowed to discuss each year's annual financial statement. Also, if the matter is related to the public interest, after giving a prior notice of 60 days, they could also address questions to the executive. But they were not given the right to ask supplementary questions. The third most important feature was that this Indian Council Act of 1892 made provisions that some non-official members of the Central Legislative Council will be appointed by the Viceroy of India on the recommendation of the Provincial Legislative Councils and the Bengal Chamber of Commerce. This told that in the Central Legislative Council, those non-official members which are to be appointed, they will be appointed by the Viceroy of India on the recommendation of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and the Provincial Legislative Council. So through this characteristic feature, the Provincial Legislative Council and the Bengal Chamber of Commerce got the authority to nominate members in the Central Legislative Council of India. By doing this, more decentralization was done in the administration of the India, and the Indians were given more authority and power in the lawmaking process of their country, that is India. The fourth most important point of this Act of 1892, of this Indian Council Act of 1892 was that this Indian Council Act of 1892 contained the provisions for the nomination of some non-official members to that of the Provincial Legislative Council by the Governor. That means that the new non-official members of the Provincial Legislative Council, which were pre-decided, some of them will be appointed to the Provincial Legislative Council by the Governor on the recommendation of district boards, universities, trade associations, chambers, zamindars. That meant that the local executive bodies, local bodies were also given the power to appoint non-official members in the provincial councils. So by doing this, even the local level representation of India was given the power to indirectly participate in the lawmaking process of their country. Previously, this was not possible, but this was one of the most important act, because through this act, the local level bodies were also given the power to appoint members to the state legislative council or the provincial legislative council, and through this, more decentralization was there. So, these were the main features of the Act, Indian Council Act of 1892. I will repeat them to you again in short. This Indian Council Act of 1892 increased the non-official members of the Central Legislative Council and the Provincial Legislative Council. This Act increased the power of the non-official members of the Central Legislative Council and the Provincial Legislative Council, and they were given the power to discuss the annual financial statement, and in matters of public interest, they could also address questions to the executive. Other important features was that some non-official members will be nominated to the Central Legislative Council by the Viceroy on the recommendation of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Provincial Legislative Assemblies. The other was that some non-official members will be nominated to the Provincial Legislative Council on the recommendation of district boards, municipalities, universities, zamindars, chambers, trade associations, etc., and they will be nominated by the governor. So, with this, I wrap up my lecture of the Indian Council Act of 1892. In the next audio tutorial, I will tell you about the Indian Council Act of 1909, which is also famous as Morley-Minto reforms. So friends, goodbye. Hello friends, welcome to my today's